What's up, guys? Welcome back to my series on stress. Now, this is part 2 of this series. If you didn't watch part 1, where I actually define and break down what stress is, you need to go watch that now. Click that little link right there in the corner and go watch that video. I want you to watch that, and then I want you to come back and watch this. But if you feel like a rebel, go ahead, start with video 2. It's going to be okay. Might be a little lost, but you're going to find your way through this. Let's get into this today and talk about stress. So we've already defined what it is. Now we're going to talk about what you're actually experiencing. Now I want to tell you something that happened to me. Man, I think this was like 5 years ago. So I live in Charlotte, and because I know there's a bunch of fact checkers out there, and we have Paramount Carowinds. Might be somebody else might have it by now, but we have Carowinds. It's a theme park, and I travel all over the country, all over the world, and go to theme parks. I like roller coasters. I like to go fast. It doesn't matter what it is. That's why I have motorcycles, fast cars, whatever. I like to go fast. So get me on the fastest roller coaster with the deepest drop as possible. I want my stomach to be in the back of my head. I like that feeling. And so, call me crazy, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna tell you what happened. So I ride this roller coaster. It was one of the longest roller coasters that, in terms of length of time, one of the deepest drops, and one of the top speeds. And it stopped. Like, we actually got stuck on this roller coaster, and we got stuck in like a little turn where you're up, some of the people upside down, some of the people right side up. And it was one thing to be stuck on that roller coaster for, I don't know, it seemed like a while, but it might have been a minute and a half. It was another thing to be stuck beside people who are screaming and losing it. I mean, and they start to hyperventilate. They're like, oh my goodness, I can't take this. I'm never riding roller coasters again. You're hearing all this stuff. So everybody's experience was different. And I didn't really realize it. I'm chilling. I'm like, you know what? Blood's kind of rushing to my head, but I just kind of move my head around, shake my hands out as much as possible, and I'm good. And the lady beside me is like, you've been stuck before, haven't you? And I'm like, no, not. This is my first time being stuck on a roller coaster. She goes, you are not freaking out. And so and then we started to have a conversation, and I'm like, I can't do anything about it. Me screaming is still going to have me stuck. All I'm doing is exerting energy and making matters worse, in my opinion. I want to deal with that for just a moment. There are a couple of types of people, right? So we think about this. Let's think about this from a theatrical or a movie, So let's think about this, and we're watching this. We're thinking about Batman. So we know the characters we have in Batman. We go through the villains, right? So the number one villain of all time, I think, inside of Batman, we can agree, is the Joker. And so we think about the Joker, we think about Penguin, we think about the Riddler, we think about Bane. So we've got all of these different villains. And then we've got the hero. And the hero is Batman. And then we've got a couple other heroes that come alongside Batman to assist him. We've got Jim Gordon, etc. So, what I want you to understand is, in that movie, we still have, in each series of Batman, we have an antagonist and we have a protagonist, all right? And we can think about those as the antagonist and protagonist, or we can think about them as the villain and the hero. Now, what I want to ask you is, what character are you in your life? Are you the antagonist? Are you the protagonist? And when you start to experience stress, do you remain the same? So if you say, listen, I'm clearly the good guy in my life. I'm the hero. I am not the villain. I'm the person that's always trying to make things better, get us to a positive outcome. Are you that same person when under stress? Are you that cool, calm, collected person under stress? And so my stress response on that roller coaster was cool, calm, and collected, because, I've been through worse things in my life than being stuck upside down on a roller coaster for a couple of minutes. And she's like, well, you don't know, we're going to be here for hours. Ma'am, it doesn't matter. Now, don't get me wrong. At some point, it's going to start to build a level of frustration, but I'm still going to control my response, because I have to understand that I am the hero. I am not the villain. The bad guy comes, the villain comes and to just torment everybody, to cause utter chaos, to make everyone's life miserable. So I'm sitting here, how can I add peace? How can I bring a sense of peace to this environment, to this situation? That's what I'm thinking when I'm going through a process of stress. So the thing is this, when one character does something that it indicates something that another character should do. So in other words, let's say I'm the hero, but all of a sudden I start acting like the villain. In a movie or in the theater side, we're gonna call that a plot twist, because you're sitting there watching, you're like, wait a second, I wasn't expecting this. And that happens in your family, that happens with your friends, like, wait a second, you were chilling 1 minute and all of a sudden, like, yeah, I just had a bad day. Okay, but do you have to respond this way? It's a plot twist. You're expecting your wife to come in the door, your husband to come in the door, your friends, your coworkers, your employees were expecting the boss to come in cool, calm, collected like you do every day, and then all of a sudden you lose it. It's like, plot twist, what happened? Okay, stress response, something started to break. So I want you to think about this. Let's talk about dating and marriage for a second, okay? Now, when I go on dates for as long, if I'm thinking all the way back, 16 years old, got my car, got my driver's license. I spent hours detailing my car to go before I went on that date. I wanted that car to be spotless. I think about prom, same thing. Car is gonna be spotless, clean. So first date, second date, third date, fit is nice. Everything's steamed, neat. Checking fingernails, manicured, putting extra time in, going to the barbershop, everything. And that went on. And it carries on to today. But think about this. The first date, you get that. Second date, you get that. Third date. How many dates, and I'd love to know, if you're in the comments, guys, how many dates are you doing all of this? And then eventually you're just comfortable. You're like, man, look, I ain't even get a chance to clean the car today. Like, you're just going to get what you're going to get. Ladies, let me know, because y'all be switching up everything, the hair, the nails, the wax appointments, the lasers, the wigs, we got it all. And when is it where you just get comfortable and you're like, you know what, man? Nah. Because here's what happens. Those first 3 to 5 dates, they're not really real. You're getting the representative, okay? You're not getting to me what I deem the real version. It's the version I want you to meet. I'm putting my best foot forward. So that's what I want you to think when you're talking about how you experience stress. It's your experience. I want you to date the experience. The experience is going to consistently change. Just like that person, you start out, oh my God, the first several dates, it was this. And all of a sudden it's like, well, they're getting more comfortable. And usually it's a little less effort, a little less energy. Oh, they're not showing up with flowers every time, every date. They're not doing this. They might slip, not open up some doors, or slip and forget this. Why? They got comfortable. And so when you get comfortable, all of a sudden, I'm starting to see another version of you, not this polished version. And so you can't get married off those first 1 or 2 or 3 dates, because the experience is going to continue to change. So what I want you all to do is understand that when you are experiencing stress, don't get married to it. In other words, if you're going through that experience, it's just for a season. Do not think it's going to always be like this. This is not forever. This is not for better or worse, for richer or for poor. Do not stay married to what you're currently experiencing. It is just a date. Well, James, I've been dealing with this for 2 months. It's okay. I've been dealing with this for 6 months, 9 months. This has been going on and on I've been dealing with a family matter where I am actually a caretaker for a family member and the legal guardian for the last couple of years. And it still is just a short experience in the bigger picture of my life. Now, it feels sometimes like it is magnanimous, but we talked about that. When you're in something, the problem looks bigger. When you moved, I talked about this in my last video, go back and watch it, where I talked about once you remove yourself out of it and can rise above it, you realize it's not as big as you thought it was, okay? So I'm dating the experience. I'm marrying the possibility of who I become due to that experience. I'm not marrying every experience, okay? Like, oh, is it? Nope, is it? No. I'm actually going to marry the outcome. Who am I now as a result of this experience? Now, who am I as a result of this experience? Who am I as a result? Oh, I'm becoming a better version. That's the version. That's what you want to be married to. That's the long-term purpose of how you are experiencing stress, is who are you allowing it to make you? Who are you becoming as a byproduct of having gone through these things? And that's extremely important for you to understand that, which brings me to my next point. What are you doing with that story? When you're getting told a story, because every single one of those experiences, you tell yourself something. Just like on a date. He shows up with flowers. You never had flowers. You go back to your girls. How was the date? Oh my gosh, he brought me flowers. One girlfriend's like, oh, that's amazing. I never been bought flowers. Another girl's like, girl, everybody, that's the standard, because she's experienced that. She's been through that. She's like, flowers ain't nothing. That's normal. And so you're like, wait a second, flowers is a big deal. So y'all going back and forth over, is this a big deal? Is this not a big deal? And that's the same thing that happens with entrepreneurs and with everyday people when it comes to stress. Oh girl, what you're going through ain't nothing. I tell people that's a Monday morning. Oh, you got this. I have a couple of clients right now getting sued, going through lawsuits. I'm like, you ain't got to worry about this. People are like, oh my God, I got to start to cease and desist. Yeah, that's normal. And they're like, does anything work you up? It's like, nah, because this is just a short season. This is here to actually serve as a distraction and disrupt your focus. And that's really what stress will do if you allow it to. If it's always the opposing factor, the enemy, the foe, it's going to disrupt and distract your focus from the bigger picture. Now, when you bring it along beside you and say, wait a second, this is telling me a different story. So just because he bought me flowers for the last 3 days does not mean that he wants to marry me. Does not mean he's the best man in the world. It simply means he's a gentleman and he's considerate. He's nice. There are a lot of nice people out there that turn out to be something else. I'm sure there are serial killers that were nice. So the standard has to be raised higher. It can't just be like, here, flowers. Okay, I'm gonna marry you. Same thing in life. It can't just be like, I'm telling myself the story of, oh my God, this is the most stressful thing I've ever dealt with. I'm done with life. No, if we can't be dramatic over here, the natural, and make things bigger than life, we're not gonna do it over here when it comes to our actual professional relationship and what's going on in our mind. So what happens is we then start to create new beliefs based off the story we're telling ourselves. So what happens is in the stress response, you start to experience something that you don't like. And you all of a sudden, maybe it's antagonistic. You're like, wait, I'm the protagonist. I'm the good guy. Why am I getting, these are bad guy vibes? And you start to believe it. Then once you start to believe it, you start to create new belief systems about it. Every time I do a webinar, it doesn't go well and it crashes. Every time I go to sell this, somebody copies me. Every time I put out an offer, somebody steals it and takes all of my content and repurposes it. And maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should just go back to corporate. All of these things you're starting to not only think, you're saying them out of your mouth now, which is extremely dangerous. You're writing a story. Now, this story isn't true. This story is just you perceiving it because you're in the Grand Canyon. If you want to know what I mean by that, you got to go back and watch that first video where I talk about you're in the problem. Now, what happens is you say, well, James, what do I do with this? I'm glad you asked me. You got to create new beliefs and you got to start creating new habits, and they need to be based on your perception of becoming that main character, becoming that good guy, and saying, I want to win. So if you are the hero, ma'am, sir, you need to say, listen, I want to win. Because here's the thing, guys. When you're at the bottom of the mountain, looking up, you only see what you have to do. But when you're at the top of the mountain and you're looking down, you see what you've already done. All right? Now, I'm gonna say it again. When you're at the bottom of the mountain, if you've ever been hiking or been anywhere where you can see just from a view, in the mountains, you're at the bottom, you go, man, in order for me to get to the top, all I see is the work I gotta do. Man, it's gonna be hard to get up there. Man, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. But when you're at the top, you go, whew, man, that was crazy. That was fun, that was exciting, that was exhausting, whatever. But you're thinking about what you did, everything that you overcame. Wow, I can't believe it. So it's the same obstacle, the mountain, the same person, you, the same conditions. Do you know what changed? Your perception, how you saw it. And that perception was tied to your ability to take action, or it created inaction. You stood at the bottom and you started overthinking it. You told yourself a story. Man, you know, my knee hurts, man, my feet. I don't know if I can do this. It's hot out here. I don't know if I brought this. What if this? And you're looking at that mountain. And the mountain becomes bigger because of the story you're telling yourself. Or you look at the mountain and say, I believe I can do this. It's going to be challenging, but I can do this. Some of you are watching this video right now. What you're experiencing every time I move is you're experiencing this effect, this weird hologram effect of these lines. You're like, dude, quit moving. What's going on? The lines aren't moving on my shirt. This isn't some shirt that I got plugged into a USB port where lines are moving. It's not an interactive shirt. But the perception, due to the distortion in the lens and the lines here, is creating an effect where it looks like, hey, things are moving. It's a pretty cool effect. So your experience is different because of how you're perceiving it, because it's coming through a lens and coming back to you and you're watching this. Well, guess what? The same thing happens in your life. It comes through a lens, this right here, and it goes through this processor just like it is in that camera, and it gets processed. But the lens is your eye, the processor is your brain. And you've got to be careful when it gets to that processor to go, oh, I've got to control how this is getting processed. How you process it is going to lead you to saying, wait, it's going to control the entire experience. Am I going to do this thing? Am I going to take massive action, stay focused and get it done? Or is it going to lead me to inaction and produce procrastination in my life? And I need you to understand the lens is important. The processor is important. What is not important is the obstacle. What is not important is the circumstances in the environment. Take into consideration how you perceive this thing, and then take into consideration, because that's going to create your experience. How are you looking at it, and how are you processing it? And when you tell yourself a story where you are the hero, where you overcome it, where you are actually on the top of the mountain and celebrating the fact that you did the work, then your relationship is going to change with stress. That's the next thing I want to talk to you about. So be sure, after you watch this video, if you haven't watched video 1, watch that. But in video 3, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to break down your relationship with stress.